Welcome to Rubbin is Racing. I am your host, Mr. Serious Sports. My co-hosts, Steve Big Sweat Billmeyer. How you doing today, Steve?
Doing real good. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here as well. We had a race today. Got rained out yesterday. They ran it today. It was nice. It was beautiful. And it wasn't a Joe Gibbs racing car to win. Surprise, surprise. Matter of fact, both races were non-Joe Gibbs racing vehicles. Kind of surprised on that. But Steve and myself will do our best to give our thoughts, opinions, and recap what we saw on today's race. So, I guess to start off, what did you think of the race?
It's pretty much typical Pocono. Not a lot of so-called action, but things, happening on the track, mostly due to aggressive driving more than anything else. And, the layout of the track and everything makes it interesting. But I guess that's more from my viewpoint as somebody that's watching to see some action.
Yeah, not quite the action we was hoping for. I found myself rooting for different drivers today to win the race. I'm not going to lie. Not that I have anything against Chase Elliott, but I found myself rooting a little bit harder for Chase Elliott, especially when he led the 50, I want to say 50-something laps today. I was hoping that maybe today would be his day and we would see our second rookie win at Pocono with Denny Hamlin being the other one. I'm not gonna lie, I found myself cheering it on. Saturday we had a rain shortened Xfinity Series race, their debut out there, and Kyle Larson won. And they had done the road course pit strategy. In other words, counting backwards from the end of the race. And I never really paid attention, or maybe this was the first year, but they did it once again. And, of course, there was one other driver, I forget off the top of my head what other driver it was, that due to the situation, they happened to pit at the same time. It might have been Keselowski, I can't remember. But they found themselves having the possibility of doing the same thing, pits stopping backwards. But that was Kyle Larson's their whole strategy today. One, is this something traditionally that goes on at Pocono? Like I said, maybe I just never paid attention to it before. And is it a track that drivers should look at as going, counting backwards and doing it like they do a road course?
Yeah, it absolutely is more of a road course than it is a super speedway, which is, that's what category it falls into also. But you plan it and you race it like a road course for the drivers. He's dealing with different turns, different radius turns like you do in a road course, with no banking to help hold the car in the corner and everything. Same as on a road course, you're figuring it more of your gas mileage windows. Like you said, you're counting backwards from the end to see where your window is to get in, and it's like a road course. It's easy to do. You don't have to rely on caution flags to get yourself in a fuel position.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it takes almost a minute to run a lap there, so you got plenty of time to do a green flag pit stop. I saw a couple of the ARCA cars to get in their windows. They waited, stayed on the track on a caution, and pitted like 4 laps later to get themselves in that window. And you can do that without losing a lap. So, it really is like a road course running there, more so than it is a super speedway, but you do have to set the car up motor-wise to run as a super speedway car, and that's what makes it difficult, so it makes it unique, and that's the big deal. People look at it because it's kind of a slow race, not like we said before, not a lot of action and everything, but to a driver, it's it's a pretty good win to have because of the uniqueness of the track and what it takes to win there.
Now, did all the cautions screw up the pit stop plan for Kyle Larson, or was it just a bad plan? He finished 11th. I'm not gonna say a bad plan. See, he finished 11th, and I don't think he ended up keeping that strategy. And I'm assuming it probably had to do with the cautions, because we seemed like there for a while. I think they even mentioned 4 and 20 laps at one point, but there was quite a bit of cautions. Did that possibly screw up the strategy, or was it just a strategy that was just ended up being a bust?
I just think they were too locked into their strategy. It's a good way to plan, and it's good to stick to the game plan and everything, but if an opportunity comes up to change that game plan, you need to be open to it, and I don't think they were. I think they were just locked in, set to go, hitting their windows at certain laps, and planning on them making them cycle through and be ahead at the end of the race. And it just didn't work. You know, it happens. Some plans look good on paper and they don't turn out very good. Same thing happened to John West Townsley Friday in the ARCA race. I mean, they were they had their plan laid out when they were going to pit and everything, and they were a lap short and ran out of gas. They dumped them way back in the pack, and they had a medium finish. So you got to be adaptable and flexible in your game strategy, especially at a track like Pocono, where the uniqueness of it and the fact that if your plan backfires, it kind of puts you in the hole big time and makes it hard to get back to the front. So you really have to be open to anything, really.
Now, I'm sure it's probably one of the bigger topics of the day, and I'm sure one of the topics you were wanting to jump into. But Brad Keselowski and the 2 team and trying to alter the aerodynamics of their car by doing a hip check. Your thoughts on that, especially with as many cameras today. I'm surprised that they do something so visible, but also the fact that Brad Keselowski is not too happy with Gordon making his comments during the FS1 broadcast. Your thoughts on the hip check and changing and altering the aerodynamics, and did NASCAR make the right call on that? And 2, does Keselowski have a point that someone like Gordon, who part owner of a team and has internal knowledge, shouldn't be in the booth?
As far as Jeff in the booth, yeah, that's kind of at the least a rookie mistake for a broadcaster. You got to keep your emotions in check. You don't want to be biased or anything, and it's, it was obvious yesterday there was some bias there. People talk about how long race car drivers have their memories are, and I think Jeff still got some holdover memories from times him and Keselowski raced against each other. So I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't the right time, right thing to say or anything, but like I said, he's a rookie. Learn your lesson and go on. As far as what Keselowski's crew did and everything, well, it takes some balls to try that, because NASCAR is looking, and they're hard on that. So it kind of takes a lot of forethought, a lot of planning to decide whether you really wanted to do that or not. But the reward is worth it in a lot of ways, because Pocono is an aerodynamic track with those long straightaways, and every little bit helps. The extra downforce on the rear tires in those flat corners helps. I mean, I saw some people debating it on Facebook in my group, NASCAR and other racing, and one of them made the comment, they didn't think it was worth the effort or anything, that it was a minimum gain. And it's not. It's a pretty good gain. You're talking tenths of a second, which is a big deal on an aero track. So, I'm kind of impressed they tried it, but I don't think if I was in that position, I would try it because NASCAR's cracked down on that. They're watching for it. And especially on an aerodynamic track, they're going to be looking for it. But they're thinking outside the box, make it look like he stumbles and falls against the car and accomplish what you set out to do. But I think if it was me, I would have my rear tire changer learned when he snatches that tire off to hand it to the jack man to make it hang on that bottom of the fender and the rocker panel and pull it out when you pull the tire through. But NASCAR might catch on to that too, so good luck getting away with it.
I was just amazed on how obvious it was. Like, it wasn't like it looked like he fell into it. It didn't look like, there was any accident about it. It looked like he's, it looked like one of those moments where your door ain't quite shut all the way. You got it locked, got your keys in your pocket and a handful of stuff, and you don't want to dig your keys back out to unlock the door so you can open it and re-shut it. So you throw your hip into it as hard as you can to make sure your doors are locked. And that was kind of what it looked like. Like, it looked like he was trying to knock the car off the jack. I don't know, I was just surprised on how deliberate it was, knowing that there are so many cameras in today's, races and sports period. And that just kind of threw me off that they were so deliberate about it.
Yeah, there's really not as many locked-in cameras on that side of the car. Of course, you've got NASCAR officials roaming back there behind pit wall, but it's not like on the right side, where there's an unobstructed view up to the NASCAR box and where all the where they can monitor what you're doing because there's nothing blocking their view or anything. So, somebody thought this out, and I'm sure NASCAR realizes that, and they'll probably give their opinion Tuesday when they usually announce fines and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't think it's an area I would mess with, especially at Pocono. If I was going to do something like that, I would go back to bleeding air out of my tires. That's pretty much died down. The NASCAR's not looking at that quite as hard as they are at people bumping out the fenders on an aerodynamic track. So you got to kind of pick your battles with NASCAR, especially if you're going to be battling below the line, so to speak.
I thought it was also interesting they had, keyed in on the fact that the NASCAR officials were standing by Brad Keselowski's car after the race to make sure that nobody altered anything else, and so they can get a better look on. I'm assuming that if it's worse than they thought it was when they attempted to fix it, I'm assuming they'll probably catch some kind of other penalty or fine, possibly. But I thought that was interesting that the officials, they made sure to keep an official there and make sure nobody tried to fix what they intentionally changed.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been real easy if there wasn't a bunch of officials surrounding the car and everything for somebody to give another hip check to it in front of where they did it and then say, well, you can see where the car hit us up here and came all the way back, instead of just having that one dent there. So that was a smart move on NASCAR. I'm glad to see they jumped on it like they did.
speaking about making worlds of a difference in 1 week to the next, it seemed like last week there was nothing that 78 team could do wrong and dominated a race, and then it seemed this week there wasn't too much they could get right, as they stop in and make a two-tire change, and it looks like they must have hit a valve stem, and by turn one, Truex tire, rear left tire was down. One, did it end up being the case that I know they talked about it, but I don't know if there was any more details that I missed about it. But two, you've been around that area of the car. How hard is it for a crew, or I guess better yet, how easy is it for a crew member, a tire changer, to accidentally hit that, to cause that to happen?
I can't see that happening, really. The valve stems they use are steel valve stems. They're not going to bend real easy. They don't break real easy. So I don't think you could have enough pressure, even using a gun, the impact wrench, to break that valve stem or knock it loose or anything like that. About the only thing you could do is there's a lock nut that goes down on the outside of the stem and pushes a washer down on top of the rubber grommet that seals the hole up. And if that was loose, that would cause some air to leak out, but it's not a rapid loss of air like that to deflate a tire that quick. So I don't know. I can't think. Usually it takes contact with another car, exhaust pipe, or hang a piece of the sheet metal or something like that to snag it and knock it off. I can't see it happening on a pit stop, but couldn't see it happening anywhere else. I didn't see him get into anybody or anything.
Yeah, I didn't see nothing on pit road either when they showed that, but then again, they only showed him coming out of the pits and down pit road. So who knows what happened after they got out of pit road or got down towards turn one? Unless you saw something different than I did. The only replay I saw, they just showed that he didn't make contact on pit road.
Yeah.
So yeah. And still speaking of world of difference, Chevy and Ford all of a sudden decided they wanted to show up. More specifically, Chevy today. And really kind of left the Toyotas scratching their head. Granted, Kenseth and Edwards finished 7th and 8th, but they really, the only two that was really any threat at any point in time. Kenseth had a pretty strong car. I wouldn't say Edwards was ever really a threat. Big difference from what we used to the first 13 races to what we've seen today when it came to the manufacturers.
Yeah, definitely a turnaround there, and which kind of opens the season up a little bit. It was getting kind of boring being the Joe Gibbs show, but I'm surprised the Toyotas didn't bring much to Pocono. Being super speedway and everything, their super speedway program's pretty good, engine-wise and aerodynamically. So I don't really see a failure or a problem there. Their road course efforts of the drivers could be a different story, but then again, you're dealing with drivers like Denny Hamlin who get around that track pretty good. So I don't really know unless, it's just Toyota was just due for a bad day, for a bad weekend. And this just happened to be the one. It'll be interesting to see what happens, next week at Michigan, being another super speedway type track, to see if Toyota bounces back and see what they do up there.
Most definitely. It was really interesting to me because up to this point, pretty Toyota dominance for the 2016 season. Then all of a sudden, Hendrick Motorsports, outside of Jimmy Johnson losing it and hitting the inside wall, I mean, all the Hendrick cars were up front. Casey Kane, overcame that penalty he caught early in the race. Still had a great finish. I believe a top 10, 6, with Earnhardt and Chase Elliott both being in the top 5. Jimmy Johnson was, had a pretty strong car. Looked like he was going to have a top finish as well. Definitely a good showing for Hendrick Motorsports. Stuart Haas, I think we was expecting a little bit more. 2 out of the 4 in the top 10. Danica having an okay day until Boss ended up taking her out, and of course he lost control of his car and ended up taking her out. But those Chevrolets definitely were showing some strength today. Then of course we always kind of expect the Penske Fords to come strong and have a good day, especially since they qualified and took the front pole or the whole front row.
Yeah, the fact Penske always shows up good there, and much like being a typical Pocono race, it was a typical Stewart Haas race. I mean, they got 4 cars. They got 2 cars that run real good, the 4 and the 41, and then they got the other 2, the 10 and the 14. And that's kind of become Stewart Haas's trademark, really. So I don't know what the problem is there, but it's a problem that they should be able to solve in-house, judging by the way the 4 and the 41 run.
Mm-hmm. As Pocono's one of those tracks that I just don't pay a lot of attention to. Today, it just happened to work out. I was off, rain-delayed race. I had an opportunity to actually sit and watch it and pay a lot of attention to it. Has Pocono always been a track that was so aero-sensitive? We've seen a lot of cars just losing. A lot of cars get put out of the race. There wasn't a lot of contact, but there was so much aero sensitivity going on that drivers were just losing control of their car.
The thing is, you get the aero factor at Pocono like you do at Daytona and Talladega, but on those 2 tracks you have the high banking that helps plant the car to the track in the corner, helps hold the car down in the corner, and it helps the car turn through the corner. And you don't have that at Pocono. You don't have the banking to rely on. So it's all aero and setup at Pocono is the only thing that gets you through the corner. That's why you see a lot of teams, if they have a handling problem, say the driver says the car is loose, instead of taking wedge out of the right rear or adding to the left rear, they'll lower the track bar to tighten the car up and not affect the weight transfer if they're happy with that already in the corners. So aero has really become, back in the day, it wasn't as big a deal because we just weren't that as far advanced with aero, and now the aero packages are so advanced that, this is why they're decreasing the downforce on these cars now, because they're so aero dependent that, it makes the car easier to drive, but it makes everybody equal too. So you don't get as much passing and everything, and this is why NASCAR's getting away from it. And it's going to be an advantage to the viewer at Pocono, because as that downforce package decreases downforce there, it should add more excitement to that race.
Kurt Busch ended up winning the race, finding himself in victory lane. I don't know, had a solid day. I don't think anybody really had a dominating car. I guess the closest I would say would be Chase Elliott, and I'm not gonna say he had a dominating car, but he had a dominating restart. Very impressed on how good Chase Elliott's restarts were. Was you surprised on how good they were? And have we seen anybody have that good of a restart consistently in a while?
Yeah, I was kind of impressed too. I mean, he is a rookie, but he's out there driving like a seasoned veteran. I mean, especially on the restarts, he didn't give anything up on the restart. There's an advantage on the restart to being a leader, and he used that advantage. And that was a good thing to see. I mean, he showed a lot of poise yesterday. Like his mind was really into the race as much as his car was, and his team was. But I don't know if it was Greg Ives coaching or what, but he was real focused and, looked real professional out there. Like I said, looked more like a veteran than he did a rookie yesterday. Or today, rather.
most definitely. I was definitely impressed with that. Trying to think if there was any. I know you had a few topics that you were looking forward to jumping into. What were your key points from this race that you wanted to, or this weekend anyway, that you wanted to zero in on?
I was watching. There was a lot of racing on this weekend. So I was flipping through, watching everything, and I was watching the IndyCar race, the duel in Detroit, where they run one race on Saturday and run one race on Sunday. And I think that would be a great idea for Pocono. Instead of running 400 miles on Sunday, run a 200-mile race for the Cup guys on Saturday, and put a companion race on there, either Camping World or Xfinity or ARCA as a companion show, and then turn around on Sunday and run another 200-mile race for the Cup guys, and then have another companion race, and that would split the weekend up. It would split that long boring center part of the race up. And plus, if you ran, say you run an Xfinity Series companion race to one of the Cup races, the Cup drivers aren't going to want to run their race that they're paid to run and the Xfinity race in the same day. So that'll cut down on the number of Cup drivers in the companion race, and it opens the seat up for new drivers or for series regulars to get a better shot at going to victory lane. I just think that that's something NASCAR to look at. I think it would draw more fan interest. I think it would draw more fans to the track. Geez, you get 4 races for a ticket for the weekend, where you get 3 now for 3 days. You could get 4 in 2 days, save a motel night. I mean, that's a pretty good idea they got going in Detroit, and I think NASCAR ought to look into that as a way to improve cup racing and maybe draw more fans that way.
Most definitely. I kind of like that idea. I did get to catch the second race of the race in Detroit. Definitely an interesting race, especially lap 1, and there was already conflict and controversy, and I was glad to see that the driver that pointed fingers and wasn't too happy ended up apologizing after he got an opportunity to sit back and watch replays. But it was definitely a fun race to watch. I love road courses, and so to see them do that and make that track the way they do, and see them be able to run it, it's really a blessing to be able to sit and watch the talent and these athletes do what they do best.
The biggest thing that impressed me about watching that race was the announcers were every bit as good as what we have in Cup racing. And Scott Goodyear is like Larry Mack. I mean, he gets down into the details of what's going on and presents a lot of interest in kind of inside information, more from a crew chief point of view. And it really made the broadcast interesting. I mean, I'm sitting there, really concentrating, listening to what they're saying, and especially what Goodyear was saying. Um, and I don't know that much about IndyCar racing, but I learned some stuff this weekend, and it's got my interest up, and I'll definitely watch more of it now, just, because my interest really jumped from watching this weekend.
Most definitely enjoyed watching that race. Definitely love it and learning something new. I'm trying to think of something else that I wanted to talk about on this this weekend's race. I tell you, I think the great thing about the Pocono race though was we got to see a lot of different names and listen to them talk about a bunch of different names that really we hadn't been talking about all season long. When we see Trevor Bayne was up front and Ricky Stenhouse had found his way up front, and I know that God, I can picture his daggone face and can't think of his daggone name to save my life right this second. Oh God, I just about had it too.
Frustrating as hell, isn't it?
Yes. 15 car. Good God, why am I not Clint Boyer? He found himself some extended TV time today. Ty Dillon in the 95 car found himself with some TV time that he normally wouldn't get. I did like that. I did like that there was some drivers that were able to take an opportunity of being at this track and being at a track that's kind of unique and different and make the most of it and take advantage of the situation and get themselves some TV time. Obviously that keeps all the sponsors happy. Even Chris Buescher, they talked a little bit about him and Casey Mears. They found that Geico machine up front there for a little bit with pit strategy. But it was really good for some of these drivers that don't get a lot of TV time that, you got to wonder sometimes how secure their sponsors are because we don't get to see them much on TV. Casey Mears is a prime example. I mean, that Geico's been sponsoring him as far back as I can remember at this point. And you wonder how secure that sponsorship is, being how Casey Mears doesn't find much TV time. And, of course, this weekend he found himself getting a little bit more than normal, so it was good to see that. But I don't know. I think it was just good that they found the TV time and was able to find, even if it was just strategy, and only if it was a handful of laps that they were talked about, that was more than they had gotten all season long, and I thought it was good for all those drivers involved. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was, and it just, it kind of puts a thought in my mind, maybe these guys are, maybe they're hitting their stride now as far as their team goes, and they do show that they are capable of running up front, when the circumstances are right, but, it's good, you're not seeing the fall off or the fade out or the drop out that you a lot of times see from these drivers. They are showing that they can be competitive. The Rouse cars, flashes of brilliance there, And Stenhouse had another good run yesterday, so, I'm glad to see it. It's pretty, it's good for the team, good for the sponsor, good for everybody, really. And there's other drivers. Kyle Larson's one has been in my mind too. He won the race Saturday, and they didn't have that spectacular showing yesterday. But the thing is, you don't, with Kyle Larson's background and the way he's run previously, you don't expect him to do good on a flat track like that. High banking running the high line is more his style, but yet he's proven that he can run these type of tracks. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when he does get a victory and does real good, if he'll experience that slump that usually follows. But you can't, it's just kind of a wait and see thing. Sure, he's going to be good, but is he going to be great? And the way he ran Saturday kind of tilted toward the great side. Like I said, that is the type of track that he's used to racing or anything like that.
Comment that was made, and I thought was interesting, when Kyle Busch hit the wall, and you could hear him over the radio talking about taking it straight back to the garage, and them up in the booth talking about maybe you got to go to pit road first, and they got into the whole, well, he's won a couple races, does he really need to be out there? Does that thought process, is that thought process really bad for NASCAR? I mean, I'm looking at it as, okay, with this whole format and knowing that, okay, if I got a couple wins, I'm going to be in. So if I wreck my car, I'm not going to make any effort to get any points, get back out there. Sponsors, they spend this money to try to get sponsor time and say that, Kyle Busch decided not to work on the car. Now, they did, and then they legitimately had issues with it and had to get it fixed. But let's say that, he decided not to get it back out there. And I don't know, I just feel that, one, you're cheating the sport that way because of that mind mentality, that whole mentality there. Well, they won a couple races, if they get in a wreck, so what? They don't need to come back out. And then also that shows me a lack of respect for your sponsors, because you're not making every effort to have your car out there. Because even if you're slower and off the pace, to me that just means you're going to get more visibility, because you're going to see the leaders pass you more times. And that's always in camera view. So, to me, you have this obligation to do everything you can to get that car back on the track, regardless if you're up to pace or not. As long as you can maintain the minimum speed, I feel that you're obligated to make every effort to get out there. Has this whole chase mentality and basically winning one or at least winning multiple races you're in concept, has that kind of ruined... I'm not going to say ruined, but has that changed the mentality, and is this bad for the sport?
Here's a little something for the Kyle Busch haters to chew on. That's called professionalism, going back out there the way he did. He didn't want to go back out there after wrecking, because he knew he was out of the race, and he wasn't going to be doing anything but filling the field. There was absolutely no reason for them to go back out other than that's what the sponsor pays me for. And that's the reason he didn't get out and call it a day. The man has matured quite a bit since being married and becoming a father, and I guess just with experience. But that's pure professionalism to go back out there like that. For no reason other than to give your sponsor what they're paying you for. And I think a lot of people, when they're dogging Kyle Busch, they don't think about that part of it and the type of person he is and everything. But, that to me was really cool. That was, I'm sure, the average fan, the average hater's not going to change their opinion. But that built in some points in the garage area with teams and with sponsors and everything. They know that, he's a top-notch guy. He's changed from what he was. So hats off to him for doing that. And you're right, it robs the sport. People come to see these drivers, and I don't want to say any other drivers would have got out of the car and called it a day in that situation or not, but your fans, they make sacrifices to come see you race. The least you can do is swallow your pride and get back out there and race the best you can the whole time you're on the track.
I most definitely agree. I feel that you're robbing sponsors, you're robbing the fans. I mean, it was a pretty good crowd for it being a Monday race, and you got to imagine how many of those fans had to rearrange their work schedules or call in to get that extra day off, or those fans that were there for the weekend and couldn't stay and spend all that money for a race that they couldn't watch. I've been at the end of that as well with last year going to Charlotte for the race and the chase and it getting rained out and it ended up running Sunday, but I had work obligations. I didn't think far enough. Usually I'd take the next day off just in case, but that weekend for some reason I didn't. And then of course you and myself we experienced that with the World of Outlaws when they came to Charlotte and it rained out that day and they ended up running the next day or something as well. And even though it was only an hour and a half, 2 hour trip up the road, at the time I only had one working vehicle, so I had to rent a car and had to work my schedule around that and make sure that I had babysitters taken care of and everything else. So when you have drivers, especially like today, that find themselves exiting early and don't make any effort because they have this mentality, well, I'm in the chase, it really doesn't make a difference. I feel you're cheating those fans, those fans that go above and beyond and spend the money. It's not cheap to go to these races. It's not cheap to get a ticket to these races. It's not cheap to once you're there. It's not cheap. It is, we sell 12-ounce aluminum Bud Light and Budweisers where I work at two for $2.50. They were $7 each at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And, I told the people who rode with me, don't buy no beer at the track. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. But I feel that when you have drivers that have that mentality, and I'm afraid that we're going to see more and more of that because the way this chase format is. I feel that I foresee this going in a direction that is not going to be favorable for the fans, and it's going to be something that's probably going to have to change. Just because I think we're going to see drivers get into that mentality. Well, what's the point of going back out there? We're in the chase already.
Yeah, it's good to see, the drivers putting that extra effort in. Like you said, the fans make a big sacrifice to come to those races. And I think this is something NASCAR has really let get out of hand, and they could, I don't know how, they could kind of help control the outrageous prices you pay for things at the track and everything. I mean, you expect to pay more because it's a resort-type deal. It's a special event, so that's understandable. But to pay $7 for one beer or pay $3, $4, $5 for a bottle of water, I mean, by the time the weekend's over, the average fan has spent a ton of money that they might have had to sacrifice throughout the year to have this one-time experience. Might be the only race they go to all year. So it's great that the drivers make themselves accessible for autographs and stuff and stay on the track, get back out on the track. Even if you're not in contention to win, at least you're out there, you're getting seen and everything, and that's what your fans want. They want to see you race.
Oh goodness! Was there any other points that we had for this race? It is hard because there wasn't a lot. This just wasn't one of those races, other than a lot of cautions. But they were primarily single car, maybe 2-car, wrecks, and it really wasn't much to those. I guess two other things that I wanted to point out I thought was interesting. One, Ryan Newman and Joey Logano and them starting to get a little beefy. But also the big bump that they end up finding down there on the apron when they avoided the one wreck, and you saw a couple cars kind of hop up in the air. Is that something that NASCAR should maybe look into getting fixed? Because that could have been a lot worse of an issue when we seen those cars hit that big hard bump or whatever they hit in the road that caused those cars to come flying up like that.
The track's gotten kind of rough over the years. But I don't like to see them, I really like seeing tracks like that have character. Like AutoZone Speedway is another one that the asphalt's got some age on it, and it develops humps and dips and things like that. And, it's kind of the price you pay for being on the apron anyway. So I don't know about fixing it or not, but when they fixed part of turn 3, where they repaved that section coming out from cornering down the straightaway, it really improved grip in that area for the time. So therefore, a couple of years, the drivers were setting up to where when they went through that corner, they were set up to run on that freshly paved part, where they were getting maximum traction. So maybe paving that whole track might improve the racing. It would definitely increase the grip, but it might be cost prohibitive. That's a lot of asphalt to pour there for that track. So, but it could be an improvement. It could be something definitely worth looking into.
Oh, goodness. Did we cover everything?
The big thing to me about this whole weekend, though, is it always brings back memories of 1987 when Tim Richmond had come back and was trying to drive and won this race. And it was just about the only thing I could compare it to is Harvick, right after he took over Dale Sr.'s car, winning, and just the joy and relief both that you experience at the time, because we were just so glad he was back, and it looked like he was just going to pick up from where he left off and just continue to become a great driver and everything. And it was exhilarating, and it was definitely a memory that I always have, and especially there for that race. That was big. Is what I can tell you. It was just a big deal.
Now, we talked earlier at the end of last week, and I talked about watching the 30 for 30 when the one with Tim Richmond. Did you get an opportunity to finally catch that?
No, I haven't. I've got it written. When you started talking about it, I looked over here on the end table, and the note's still sitting there to watch it, but I'll try to remember to watch it tonight, because I really want to see it, because I've never seen it before, and this was something I was part of, so I definitely want to see it. And, now might be a good time, be some more good memories.
And I guess the only question I really got after watching that is, how much was it a distraction with all the questions concerning his health at the time for him and for the team itself? It just seems that would be a lot of distraction going on when everybody was kind of more focused on what was going on with him versus what was going on the track and getting the team ready for the next week.
Credit Harry Hyde for that. Harry stressed to us all the time that nobody can break a team down from the outside. He said, nobody can do that. He said, a team breaks down from the inside. He said, if you guys stick together and make your team your closest friends and your closest bonds and everything, he said, nobody will mess with that. And that's the way we were. We pretty much socialized with us instead of going down to the lounge at the motel and drinking with guys on the other teams. We were in a group together, and we stuck together, and we kind of shut out the outside distractions and everything. And we didn't want to talk about it and answer questions about it, because we had our own questions. We had stuff that we were already dealing with that we didn't need the outside influences of. So we just, I can't speak for the other guys, but I'm pretty sure that they were like me. We just shut it out and concentrated on doing our job the best we could and to put a car on the track that would say, hey, not only is Tim Richmond a good driver, but he's got good equipment and a good team behind him too. So that was our focus, and that's what kept us together.
Yeah, as I was watching that, and you know, and the concerns and the questions constantly coming up about his health, it just made me wonder how much, you know, how much of a distraction and how much did that, how much of a distraction and how much that took away from getting, you know, focused on the race and the upcoming race. And I think that was other than I was constantly every video footage that they have of the pit stalls or the pit crew. I was trying to see if I could see you in the background somewhere. I think those were the two things that I really focused on when I was watching that. It was an interesting 30 for 30. If anybody's not seen it, you guys can check it on Netflix. Just search 30 for 30, and about halfway down, it's the one with Tim Richmond. A really good piece to be able to watch, and I definitely enjoyed it, and definitely got a little more educated. As you know, about that time frame, I was probably about 10 years old or so. So you know, it was one of those things that I enjoyed NASCAR and I watched it, but at that point in time, I was more of the casual fan, obviously being the age I was. So I didn't get into all that. I can remember Tim Richmond running, but I don't really remember Tim Richmond running. So it was great to be able to sit down and watch that. Any
I'll
other?
have to watch it, you know, like you said, to see if I can see myself in there. But I was thinking when you mentioned that, you wouldn't recognize me back then. Back then, I probably weighed at least 60, probably close to 70 pounds more than I did. There was a reason they called me Big Sweat and not just Sweat. I mean, I was a large man then, and I had a full beard and everything. So, you know, even if you saw me, you probably wouldn't recognize me.
Well, I was going off the one profile picture that I used for your show, where you're standing up there, and I could tell you was a much heavier person than you are now, and so that was the picture that I was going off of when I was trying to search for you.
Yeah, things are a little bit different now, but yeah, I want to watch it. You know, I like reliving those memories. They're a big part of my life, and it was a special time, to say the least. I'm glad I was fortunate enough to be part of it. And but yeah, I'm really got my mind back on it now. I really want to watch it. And just, you know, see these guys that a lot of them I haven't seen since then, but see guys that I worked with and I was around all the time and everything. And, it'll be cool, to say the least.
Most definitely. Was there any other points we got from this weekend or our coming up race that you wanted to talk about? And then let's wrap up with Thursday night show and Facebook group.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's going to happen at Michigan, if this low downforce deal is going to make a bigger improvement there on putting the car more in the hands of the driver than in the aero package. So I'm going to be interested watching that, and that's what I'll be concentrating on most of the weekend. I don't know, you know, Pocono's it'll come back up in another 2 months or so. They'll run it again, and I don't know where anything. That's another thing about Pocono. There's really nothing you can take from Pocono. Excuse me, and apply in principle at another track. So it's kind of a, once again, it's like a road course. It's kind of a standalone deal. So I don't see much implications on the chase or anything coming from the next race at Pocono, other than the fact you might have a different winner. While we're on the subject of social media, Thursday nights, right here on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network, we have Racing with Big Sweat. We talk about local short track racing there, so tune us in at 9 o'clock. Come to my Facebook group, NASCAR and Other Racing, and a flyer for the show will be posted with all the links where you can listen to it and everything. And, stick with my group. We do a pretty good job of doing race threads on all the televised races and all the types of racing, Indy cars, IHRA, Formula One, Cup, ARCA, if they're racing. We're watching it and we're talking about it in the group. So come join us, hang out with us. We always have a good time. And I'll have my blog out sometime tomorrow. NASCAR shit, Racing with Big Sweat. And we'll talk some more about what's going on at Pocono. We'll do a little bit more previewing of Michigan. So give it a read and leave a comment as to what you think about it. And thank you for reading it if you do.
I want to also thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you guys check out the 110 Nation at 110 Nation on Twitter. And you can check out our Facebook group, 110 Nation Sports, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, 9 o'clock, right back here on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network. We got the 110 Nation Sports Show. We got Brady Boswell of Mason Mitchell Motorsports joining us at 9:30 to talk about Michigan, his 6-race deal that he signed with them recently. And I believe 2 top 5 finishes, if I remember correctly, in recent races. I'm looking forward to having him. Then we also got Mason Mitchell himself on Wednesday night joining us as well. So make sure you guys tune back in at 9 o'clock to catch us there. Steve, another great weekend, another great night. Glad to have the opportunity. Oh, did you see that that video of the lady that was on the wrong side of the fence at the must have been a local dirt track race where they helped her climb over the fence, and everybody was kind of wondering what the hell she was doing on that side of the fence?
Yeah, I saw that today. And all I can say is, race fans, God love them. People will get so tied up in the racing and everything that they just they lose their minds. They forget where they are. And it's just, come out to your local short track, people. You never know what you'll see out there.
Most definitely. Definitely looking for.
I'll tell you what. A memory it brought back up about local short track racing. I won't call any names or anything, but one of the tracks I ran at with my late model, we had a driver there who was a loose cannon, to say the least, and he dumped somebody in the corner. So the track officials made him go to the back of the pack, and he didn't like that. And they had another caution right after the restart, couple of laps after the restart. And he's still mad, so they come by on a caution lap, and he just stops his car right there on the front stretch. Already had his belts loose, climbed out, and peed on the start-finish line to show his displeasure.
Wow.
And needless to say, he left the tracks in handcuffs that night. But that's what I say, people, come out to your local short track. You just never know what you'll see out there.
Most definitely. Definitely will be looking to Thursday night, hanging out with you in the studio. Racing with Big Sweat, Thursday nights, brought to you by Snafu Seasoning. And like I said, for those that are got their time free in an hour, make sure you guys tune back in for the 110 Nation Sports Show, 9 p.m. Got great guests. Shorty should be joining me in the studio. Mike Perricone, the host of Hot Laps with Stats, will probably be hanging out, probably find his way in the studio at some point as well. So make sure you guys tune in and check us out. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Look forward to being right back here, Rubbing Is Racing, next Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, you guys have a great night.
Talk to you Thursday.